is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to lockdown coverage, week number 7 in the National Football League. Seattle Seahawks taking on the New York Giants. Giants coming off of their first win of the season. Was that just a mirage, or is this actually a resurrection? New offensive line, new parts all around. Could this be the start of something big for the Giants, or was that just one game that they stood up and said, we aren't going to be winless any longer? This was going to be a huge test for them. Seahawks coming off of a bye, much better defensive unit. And you could argue the Broncos are a good defensive team in their own right, but Seattle wasn't going to allow the Giants to do what the Broncos allowed them to do last week, which was run the football and kind of pick their spots with Eli Manning and do just enough to win that game. No way, no how. They were going to make plays. They were going to come out, pressure Eli, force the issue, and allow the offense to take it to a Giants defense that has been good this season but can be scored upon. So this was a good test for the Giants to see if last week was real or not. And for the Seahawks, you're coming off of a bye. This is not a good Giants football team. They're all kinds of banged up. Just dominate them already, will you? And so this game started out ominously. Like, what are you doing? Like, early on in the game, I'm like, will you just stop playing with these guys and do them in, please? And early on, they're toying around with the Giants. They're moving the football up and down the field, it seems like. They're having success moving the ball. Russell Wilson is connecting. And there were some drops, obviously, with Jimmy Graham, which continues to frustrate Seahawks fans because there's good Jimmy and then there's bad Jimmy and then there's invisible Jimmy. So you don't know which one is going to show up or not show up each and every single week. This week it was bad Jimmy with all of the drops. But in any event, you had the turnover on downs early in this game when you were moving the football. Long drive to like 14, 15 plays, something like that, like 85, 90 yards, somewhere in there. Ate up like 6, 7 minutes of the clock. And then you get all the way down there and you can't get it in the end zone. And so you're like, really? That's how you're feeling? Then you got the fumble. And so, Thomas Rawls gets the football punched out. And you're just like, guys, what are we doing here? Stop messing around with a bad football team, allowing them to have confidence at home. And finally, somewhere in that third quarter, they woke up. The light bulb came on. Russell Wilson was able to connect with Doug Baldwin for the first touchdown of the game for the Seahawks. And from that point on, they were able to pick it up. 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, put this game on ice. The Giants missed the field goal, which they had to have to cut it to a 2-score game. They weren't able to do that. And at the time, it would have been a 1-score game had they made the field goal. Instead, they missed. And that allowed the Seahawks to kind of run away with this game. And they should have run away with this game. The Giants aren't in any position to beat a team the caliber of the Seahawks. Home or away, it doesn't matter. And so they finally took over in this game. They were able to create some turnovers and some short fields, and they were able to finally get it all together. They got after Eli Manning. He's not one for pressure. They got after him. He started throwing the football all over the place. They were able to make plays and get the win 24-7. That's a nice win, but it's not one that moves the needle for anyone. You were supposed to win this game, and you didn't look all that impressive in doing so until the second half, until more specifically the fourth quarter. Next week is going to be a much bigger test for you at home versus really your next 2 games at home are going to be very telling as to how serious you are, because as you can see, the Rams aren't playing around. The Rams are serious. And even though you got a win against them already, they're not playing around. They're not joking. They're ready to compete for this division. And I think you're going to win this division when it's all said and done. But you're going to have to beat some good teams along the way. Got a couple of big home games versus Houston. They're coming off of a bye week, and Deshaun Watson has been carving everybody up. And in case you haven't noticed, the Texans score points. So if you're not prepared to score potentially 30, 33 points to win this game, you may not get it done at home versus the Texans. And then you got the Redskins the following week, another offense that is capable of scoring and they play a little bit of defense too. So we'll see what happens in those next 2 games. I think they'll tell a lot as to how far this Seattle Seahawks team is willing to go get that division that is out there. And they're going to have to jostle with the Rams for it. And these next 2 weeks are going to be very telling. Is the offense better? We don't know. That Giants game was a little bit of a test because the Giants do play defense, but they're a bad football team. And so you don't know where their psyche is defensively. The Texans, that's a good defensive football team. You're going to find out if you're good on offense or getting better on offense there, and maybe even the following week versus the Redskins at home. So we're going to find out a lot about this Seattle Seahawks football team in the coming weeks. But this was a win that you had to go get, and you found a way to get it done in the second half of this game after struggling in the first half. For the Giants, it's a bad football team, and there's not really much more to say. They're not going to win a ton of games this season. They've got a chance to play spoilers in the division. They've got a ton of division games left. One against both the Eagles and Cowboys remaining, and then 2 against the Redskins. So they're going to have a say in how the division ends up going. But in any event, this is not a good team. They've got a ton of injuries. There's no silver lining here. There's nothing positive to talk about. At least when they won against Denver, you could talk about the run game and the offensive line and how the shuffling of the offensive line helped. There was none of that in this game. Eli was under siege. It was coming from all angles. Guys were getting beat off the edge. Guys were getting beat in the interior. Eli was under duress for the vast majority of this football game, and because of it, this Giants team never stood a chance. The run game went back to being non-existent, and so you're back to square one offensively. Defensively, still a good football team, but when you're struggling the way that the Giants are offensively, it takes a toll on the defense. And so, like I said, they're 1-6. They're going to struggle. It is what it is, as the Seahawks get the win 24-7 over the New York Giants in this game. And so that is going to do it for this breakdown. Seahawks get the win, go to 4-2 on the season with this 24-7 victory over the Giants, which allows them to stay a half game back of the Rams in the NFC West division. That's a 2-team race. With Carson Palmer going down and the Rams asserting their dominance and will over the Cardinals. It's a 2-team race now. It's between this Seahawks team and that Rams football team, and you're going to have to find a way to keep pace with them. You got them once more. If you can sweep them, that'll go a long way in determining who is going to come out on top in that division. This was a game that you have no business losing. You found a way to get it done, and so you move on to a much bigger game at home versus Houston in week number 8. For the Giants, more bad football to come. Not much more to say than that. They're 1-6. There's going to be a lot more worse things that happen to them throughout the course of this season before it's all said and done. And so it's going to be a long season for Giants fans. That is for certain, as they lose again, this time 24-7 at home versus the Seahawks to drop them to 1-6 on the season. That's going to do it for your man Louie T here on Lockdown Coverage. More Lockdown coverage in store for you, including another ass whooping coming your way. And then we'll wrap it up with the Steelers and Bengals. Always fun to watch those two AFC North foes face off. It's usually a physical, aggressive game. We'll talk about those games and more here on Lockdown Coverage coming up. I'll see you in a bit. More Lockdown Coverage